it's a very large molecule, and you can subdivide that into genes, and part of the DNA will be considered as a gene depending upon whether it has capability to reproduce a protein or some other biomolecule. It might have some regulatory function, and that we will discuss in different chapters or different lectures in detail. So when you think about DNA, DNA has these codes. So basically these are nucleotides. You can see there is a letter A, C, C, A, C, C, G, A, G, T. And the DNA over here, what you see is it's a double helix. It has double strand, and it is in the helical structure. So double strand is basically this is one strand, and the other is complementary strand. So this DNA, either of this strand, it has the information, and that information is being transcribed with mRNA. And whatever the information is here, on the mRNA, that would get translated into amino acid. So amino acid is something building block of protein, and this with the whatever the code is there on mRNA, that would get translated in terms of the amino acid, and this amino acid basically gets polymerized inside the ribosome, and then the one amino acid is attached to the next one, and this basically basically it can grow until there is a sign from the mRNA to stop it, and that will form the protein. And eventually this this single chain, it will have its folding, and that will have a particular shape, and this particular shape for a particular protein will be very different depending upon what is the sequence. And so basically the idea over here, what you see is the information is carried in DNA, and that is being first transcribed and then translated, and then after translation you will get the protein, and this protein will have some function. So this is also it's a very important aspect or theme of the life. Then the next theme is basically energy and matter. In this particular example, what you see is there is a plant, and the plant absorbs the solar energy, and basically after absorbing solar energy, it will convert that heat energy into chemical energy that will get stored, and when the plant is eaten by, let's say, some moth or some other organism, that chemical energy is passed through the different organisms, and part of it, the part of the light energy is getting converted into heat also. But when the organism, the plant or organism dies, it will decompose, and after decomposition, it will basically have some process, and then it will return, in kind of nutrient form, or again there is basically with the energy, you can see that all these elements or all this matter is getting converted into, you can say, it get decomposes. So basically this it goes on. So whatever the chemicals are there after decomposition, that can be absorbed by plant, and then again it will it will recycle all these things. So this is basically, you can say, a kind of balance between energy and matter. So this energy and matter is very different than the physics concept, where the Einstein concept is very different than over here. So we are not discussing that. And in terms of the interactions, there are a lot of interactions. So over here, what we see, there is a tree, and tree is absorbing the sunlight. So when it absorbs light, it basically goes into photosynthesis. And during photosynthesis, what would happen is the carbon dioxide within the environment, that would get into converted into O2. And basically that, the process, during this process, there is a food generation, and that food is basically eaten by the animals or organisms. And that is the, again, there is a, now over here what we see is there is interaction between different organisms and interaction between different non-living matters. So there is interaction between soil and tree. There is interaction between gases and tree. There is interaction between sunlight and tree, and it's a very dynamic process. So in order to survive, the tree will get the water from the soil, and it will also get the minerals, and those basically with that help it will grow. So all this is basically a part of the interaction. Now one more theme is important theme, you can say. It's about the evolution. So here on the left side you see the picture of the bat, and bats are the only mammals which are capable of flying. They have the wings over here, and but then when you look carefully, these wings, you can see there is fingers over here. Each side there are fingers, and in between this finger there is kind of webbing, and that is basically the webbing is extended between fingers, and that's how it forms the wing. So this particular, for the bat, even though it's a mammal, it has evolved to fly with the adaptation. It acquires this kind of evolution, this kind of trait during this evolution. And over the time it has been refined by natural selection. So over here, the other diagram over here, what you see is the principle of natural selection. So in the first, there are four pictures over here. Picture 1 shows the population with the varied inherited traits of the beetle. So what does that, I mean, what you see over here, the beetle has different colors. Some are dark, some are bright. So subsequently, during the natural selection process, what happens is, let's say this is the bird, and when it looks at the beetle, when it eats, it will obviously choose the brightest because that would be easy to spot. So then what happens during this natural selection process? There is an elimination of individuals with certain traits, and those traits would be beneficial for that organism. And then what you see is the rest of the beetles, basically there is a reproduction between the rest of the survivors, and that basically the population gets increased in the last picture number 4. And when you compare picture number 1 and picture number 4, what you see is the bright color the beetle, when go through the natural selection process, automatically it gets discarded, and the beetles with dark color or some kind of low contrast, that would basically get survived, and that particular trait is basically selected for natural selection. So this is the part of the evolution. And just to give you some idea how diverse things are in the biology, how diverse, there is a lot of diversity. So far, we have identified somewhere about 1.8 million species. Out of that, only like 1 million are fungi, approximately 3 million are plants, and oh, sorry, not 1 million, I would say 100K or 100,000, those are fungi. Around 290,000 those are plants, and somewhere about 52,000 are vertebrates, and so on. So when you think about these numbers, these are very, very huge number, and each organism has a diverse role. But then the basic unit of this life, you can say it's a cell, and depending upon the organism, the cell will have different little bit different organelles, little bit different functions, and so on. One more thing, when you think about organism biologically, you want to go for classification, and this classification over here, it's basically a taxonomy, where you want to identify that species, the particular genus, family, order, class, phylum, and kingdom, and from domain, and all these things are there. But here is this is the main reason some of you might hate biology, and some of you think that, okay, I don't want to remember so many things. But again, over in this particular course, at least for this my model, the emphasis and space will be upon learning the concepts, and not remembering all those technical terms. Yeah, at a particular stage you will you want to remember this, but then that's not the motto. And as long as you get the concept, that should be fine. So in this particular taxonomy, what you see is this is the polar, you can say, bear, and the biological name is Ursus americanus, and within that genus you can see different bears, polar bear, and some other bear, and the family will have different bears. The order will have, when you consider the order, that would be a carnivora, and then it comes into mammalia class. Then the phylum is there, kingdom is there, and then domain is there. So the taxonomy is very vast, and how do you basically come up with the names, and how do you come up with the how do you compare all those things? It's a very different science, but idea over here is not to remember the biological names. So now, when we talk about three domains of life, these are very this is very important concept, you can say. So there are three domains of life. One is bacteria, other is archaea, and third is eukarya. When you think about the bacteria have only single cell. So as an organism, it has only single cell, and in the bacteria, all the cells does not have nucleus. So the DNA is just inside the cell. There is no the covered, or there is no partition from the DNA to the other parts of the cell. And this is one of the function the bacteria might have evolved during the adaptation, during the evolution, to survive. These bacteria are most diverse, they are more widespread, and they are basically, when you think about the taxonomy, they are classified into different kingdoms. But again, we are not going to discuss that. Then the second domain is the archaea, and basically this archaea, the domain archaea, the organism from the archaea domain, it has been it can be found in extreme environments, something like salty lakes, boiling hot spring, and again this it will have it includes multiple kingdoms. So when you think about bacteria and archaea, these two these two domains that that makes prokaryotes. So prokaryotic is basically without, you can say, no, so basically these two, they don't have the membrane for the DNA. So the DNA information is out in open inside the cell. And in comparison to that, the third domain, that is eukarya, or you can say eukaryotes, has again multiple kingdoms, and basically over here a few examples are shown. This is basically about the plant kingdom, then you have fungi kingdom, then you have animal kingdom, and then there is a protist kingdom. So when you think about the protist kingdom, these organisms, they are unicellular, and most of them, they are unicellular, but then there could be some instances where you might be seeing some simple multicellular organisms in the protist. And the animal kingdom, or the fungi and planty kingdom, these are basically more evolved. It has a different organs. Each organ will have different function, and again, it is very complicated. But even though you have so much diversity in the biology, or the organism, there could be unity in terms of some kind of functioning. Here, what you see, there are cilia from two different organisms. So this is cilia of paramecium, and the blue is cilia of windpipe cell in the throat of human being. So when you take the cross section of this cilia, the cross section looks very similar. But when you think about the function of the cilia in these two organisms, they are way different. In case of paramecium, the cilia basically propels the cell or this particular organism to move from one point to other point inside the lake or inside the pond. However, in the human being, the cilia that has completely different function. It basically absorbs or adsorbs the mucus, and it basically cleans the lung and prevents getting the mucus upward. So basically, the idea over here is, even though this cellular structure of these two cilia looks very same, but their function is way diverse. So when you think about how to make sense of the biology, it's very difficult to make sense of the biology. Basically, the only thing you can make sense is the evolution, and during evolution, many things are adapted, many things are evolved, and during that process, the evolution process itself, many components, reaction pathway will have sometimes similarity, sometimes diversity. So it's a very unique solution, unique situation in the biology. But during all this evolution process, there would be one thing common, that would be adapting the external environment. And if at all the organism cannot adapt to the external environment, that basically get killed. Over here, we have one example about the adaptation to environment. So you might have seen some, droughty areas, and within, the drought areas, you might have seen this kind of plant, which is called as mother of pearl or ghost plant. So even though, there is, as such, there is no water, it's a completely dry land. What happens is, this plant particularly capable of storing water. You can see some water droplets over here. So basically, it can capture the water droplet, or it can, you can say, in a way, it can harvest water in the droughty areas, even though, and it can survive in that extreme condition. So it's again, the process is evolved. I mean, basically how basically this plant survives in this droughty condition, that has been evolved, and it gets adapted to the situation. Now, when we think about biology, again, how do we relate biology with invention and discovery? Here are some representative discoveries and representative inventions. So one of the distinguished discoveries, I can say, about Newton's laws of motion, then law of gravity, then continental drift, then periodicity in the elements. You can see there is a periodic table, and that periodic table is developed on the atomic number, and there is certain periodicity depending upon the orbites, how many so basically there is a periodicity, and then you have nervous system that basically passes the signal from one point to other point inside vertebrata with the electrical impulses. Then we, as a human, basically we have identified moons of each planet, and then we have identified, or you can say, discovered the radioactivity. So all these are great discoveries. When you think about the invention, which have tremendously changed the course of the human being from the all other animals. Those are wheel, electric bulb, automobile, aeroplane, radio, communication. All these things are meant for the communication, radio and television. Then the internet. So basically, these are greatest you can say inventions. But when you think about the biology, and when you think about the invention and discovery, where exactly biology lies? Over here, this figure, basically, you can see there are two, basically, it's a plot. On the horizontal axis, you have the relevant to immediate application from low to high, and on the vertical axis, you have scale low to high for relevant to advancing of knowledge. Now, when the relevance to advancing knowledge, there is a, when it's a very high, it becomes in the theory quadrant, and over here in this particular quadrant, the pure basic research without consideration of relevance to the practical issues are considered. And when it comes to the immediate application, and if you think about this doll quadrant, in this particular quadrant, you will think about the applied research, which can bring or address the important practical questions. So that comes in the doll quadrant. But when you think about biology basically comes in this west quadrant. It has relatively, you can say, low immediate application and low relevant advancing of knowledge. But one of the greatest example of the biology, even though it cannot be, I mean, it cannot be treated completely west quadrant also. The thing is that with the current pandemic, you might have seen that for the COVID, we got the vaccine in the record time. We got the molecular structure of the particular this SARS-CoV-2 in very record time. Otherwise, it will take a lot of time. And specifically, since we understood how this spike protein on the virus looks like, that way we could develop a strategy for the vaccines. So during these days, even biology, I mean, having the basic infrastructure, basic technologies, that can bring the immediate application in the pharmaceutical area, in the drug designing. So even though at times you see that the biology has low relevant in the immediate application and low relevant to the advancing of knowledge, but at times it would be extremely helpful to study basic things of the biology to develop drugs, new drugs, do new vaccines. So here are some bio-inspired materials, and basically engineers like you, physicists like you, they have developed this kind of material. So in terms of the bio-inspired materials, you have a lot of nanocomposites. Then there is a bio-inspired computing, then bio-inspired robotics, plastic, technology. So the biology can inspire you. The learning of biology, I mean, learning the basic things of biology, that will inspire you to make such a good product that would be helpful to the environment, and it can create less pollution in every aspect. Because when you have the biological theme, then obviously you are optimizing, you are trying to learn the laws of nature, and you come up with some inspiring ideas. And with those ideas, what would happen is there would be less pollution, and the activity, the response to particular phenomenon could be faster. Here, this is one example of compact nanoscale device, which is basically emulating the biological synapses. This is nerve cell, you can say, passing signal from one cell to the other cell. And on that basis, this the computation system is being developed. This is one example over here. In this particular example, the robots are built by getting the inspiration from the spiders. You can see the arms and or legs; those are exactly like spider, and then it can basically crawl, or you can say climb any surface. Here at IIT Bombay, there are many scientists, many academicians. They have developed unique product, and again, these are developed by engineers like you, physicists like you, or chemists. I mean, so. This particular example is basically a mobile phone-based diagnostic platform to detect sickle cell blood in the blood. So it's a basically very easy device to use. You just basically use phone and you put the blood sample, and then you can analyze the blood sample directly, and from there you can determine whether the patient has sickle cell anemia or so. So this has been developed in the lab of Professor Debjani Paul at Biosciences and Bioengineering. Then I'm giving you one more product. So this is basically U-check, and this U-check it has a wide variety of testing the routine samples of the urine, and specifically it can determine the albumin to creatinine ratio, and it can determine the blood sugar. Again, it's a point of care device. It's very easy to use, and it's low cost. So since it's a low cost, it has a limited power supply, so you really don't have to plug in power supply to operate this device. So this gives you really good benefits in the remote areas where there is a shortage of the power. This has been developed by Professor Rohit Srivastava at Biosciences of Engineering. And so basically, I just want to show you one more example by Professor Ravi Gudi. He has developed this prosthetics to help the uh, help the person who has different disabilities with the bone, and with this kind of prosthetics, it's easier for that particular person to walk, to have some certain movements. So again, all these technologies are being developed at the IIT Bombay. So idea over here is to basically inspire you, prepare you for the next um, next challenges which are coming in the life. So now I will take questions, and you can raise your hands, and your basically questions will be addressed one by one. If you have any questions, please raise your hand. And yeah, Ojas.
So this was just an introductory lecture, right? Like a lot of information on the screen. We're not expected to memorize it, right?
Yeah, I mean, part of you can say, the part of the I think something about the life. I think we discuss a lot of things about the life,
Yeah.
particularly these themes, and then the recognition of life. These are important aspects you want to remember. But other than that, probably it's a lot of information just to motivate you guys to
Yeah.
learn the biology.
All right. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, Manishka.
Sir, I had to ask about exams, like what will be the exam pattern?
So coming to exam, yeah. So for me, for my module, there are 6 lectures. Considering today's module, so I will have 5 more lectures, and there will be one quiz which will have 5 marks, weightage of 5 marks, and in the mid-sem I will have a weightage for the 20 marks. So each module, each instructor, the total marks is 25 for each instructor. So in my case, I will have quiz and mid-sem. In Professor Silaja Nayar's case, it will be mid-sem. Professor Amrish Kumar, so he will have again quiz and mid-sem. End-sem. Professor Hari Verma, he will have quiz and end-sem. So this is the structure. So when it comes to coming to the questions, what kind of questions? This questions will be mainly multiple choice question, and there will be only one answer correct to this multiple choice question. That pattern will be for the quizzes for the mid-sem.
And so this 5-marker quiz will be on SAFE, right?
On sorry?
SAFE.
I did not get that. Can you repeat again?
Sir, SAFE app.
SAFE. We will look into that. I think either we can there is a particular session for the quiz that we can use, or I will clear this in the next lecture, whether we are going to have the quiz through the Moodle or quiz through the Moodle or the SAFE app, because it's a yeah. So I have to see that, and I will let you know guys accordingly.
Okay, sir. And when will we get the information of our TAs?
Yeah, so the TA list is being compiled again. Once the TA list are compiled, so what we'll do is we will create the teams. Create the team on Microsoft Team, and in each team there would be somewhere about 35 students, And for 35 students, then with one TA, you will get the notification through email that you have been registered for this particular teams, and then that can be coordinated. So again, I think for your D3 division, the tutorial slot is X1, that's 2 to 255. But that information, I think I should give you by next lecture.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
Yeah, Anish.
Sir, I just have a small doubt,
Mhm.
or rather a small curiosity.
Mhm.
How exactly are the three domains of life formulated? Like,
Mhm.
what were the characteristics that led us to, classify them so?
Okay, I think that's a very good question. And again, this is, I mean, I will give you some idea about it. Okay. So when you consider bacteria, bacteria is something which has only single cell. Okay, you might have heard about Mycobacterium tuberculosis, which causes the disease tuberculosis. You might have heard about leprosy, that is caused by Mycobacterium leprosy.
Yeah.
These are bacteria, and these are only single cell. Okay, and so basically they might survive in extreme conditions or may not. So that's, I think, when you consider the bacteria, uh, again, the nucleus, there won't be a such nucleus. So again, when it comes to archaea are very similar to the bacteria, but it can sustain in very different conditions, like extreme conditions. And again, the cell structure is very much similar to bacteria, but then they have peculiar characteristics which could be different than bacteria. And when you consider the eukaryotics, the major difference between prokaryotics and eukaryotes, so basically bacteria and archaea, that is basically classified into prokaryotic, and in the prokaryotic there is no nucleus, so DNA is inside cell. There is no as such the compartment for the DNA.
Are
But
there
when
multicellular prokaryotes?
multicellular prokaryotes, no.
Okay.
No, as far as I know, there is no. But in the eukaryotic, the distinction is all this, the DNA is separated from the inside cell because this DNA will have membrane, and or you can say that DNA will be found in the nucleus. So in the eukaryotic, basically, even though it's a single cell, still there will be DNA which will be inside the nucleus. And these are some of the protists, they may be unicellular, but then still they are classified as a eukaryotic. But then at the same same thing, same hand, in eukaryotic there is a different level. I mean, the organism could be multicellular, or organism might have multi organelles like animals, and it's a very broad classification for the eukaryotes. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, I don't 100% understand the difference between bacteria and archaea yet, but for the most part, yeah.
Okay, Professor. Yeah, I think you should read about these things in the book, so probably that will be clear to you. Okay, so Professor Amrish Kunwar, I think he wants to say something.
All right. So I think there were some questions on the logistics. Okay, and I can answer those questions. So I think one of the question was about the quiz. Okay, so we will be conducting most of the quiz using Moodle. Okay, and we will be conducting. So as you can see that there are total 5 marks allocated to the quiz. Okay. And what we will be doing, most of the instructors that will be taking more than 5 quizzes, because whenever we take the quiz there might be some technical problem. Just to take into account all of that, we'll probably take more than 5 quizzes, and we'll take your best 5 scores. Okay. So like last semesters, we conducted 7 or 8 quizzes. Some instructor conducted 6 quizzes. So, will differ from instructor to instructor, but there will be more than 5 quizzes so that we can take the best 5 scores. All right. So quizzes will be conducted using Moodle, and then all the tutorials will be conducted on MS Teams. So all of you will be added to MS Teams, different MS Teams due to different tutorial rooms, and in each of the rooms there will be about 35 students. Okay. So if you see a new room appearing which says, let's say BB101 MCB tutorial room number 0102 or something like that, that means that is your tutorial room number. And we will also upload an Excel sheet which will have your tutorial room number before the tutorial starts. And we'll also add the corresponding TAs to your tutorial room, and they will be your primary point of contact for any course related queries. Okay. As far as tutorials are concerned, quizzes are concerned, other things. Okay. Any other question you have on logistics, I can answer. Attendance is very compulsory, as Professor Sandeep has already emphasized that. So attendance is a must. Any other question you have on logistics, I can answer that.
Yeah.
Sir, I had a doubt. So, so the quizzes which are mentioned here, are they weekly quizzes?
It's up to the instructor how he wants to conduct the quiz. So quizzes can be conducted either during the lecture hours, during the tutorial hours, or sometimes it might happen that there is no time, then it might be also conducted sometime in the evening. And generally the duration of quizzes is 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how complex the quiz is. And in general, if there is a PWD student, he gets 30% extra time. So let's say if there is a 60-minute exam, then he gets 20 minutes extra. Okay. So the same thing also applies to the quiz. So all the PWD category students will be added to that. But in order to claim the benefit, the list has to come from the academic office. All right. Any other question on logistics? All right, then. Sandeep, you may continue.
Okay. Yeah. So if you have any other questions, you can ask. Otherwise, we can discuss and stop the lecture here. Yes. Yes. Go ahead. Yes, I'm not able to hear you.
Hello.
Yes.
So, am I audible?
A little bit.
So the tutorial for these will be on Wednesday only, right? 2 to 3 o'clock.
Tutorial will be on Wednesday. Yes.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
You have all the tutorials on Wednesday itself, right? Yeah. So, okay. Any other question? But again, there won't be a tutorial tomorrow. I think the first tutorial for this module will be next week. Any other question? Okay, it seems that there is no more questions, so we can stop here, and I will see you in the next lecture. And in the next lecture, we will discuss mainly about the cell. We will talk in a little bit details of the cell. Okay, then I'll see you in the next lecture. We can stop here.